Thanks very much, Mr. Speaker. I actually have quite a bit to say on this bill, but I'm just going to try and keep my comments fairly brief in my opportunity to speak in second reading to Bill 27, the Alberta Research and Innovation Act. I was aware of this act was coming some time ago because I started to have people approach me at public events and say, we're really concerned. This bill is coming that is going to roll all of the research foundations together, and we have real concerns about the effect that that's going to have. And as I started to look over possibilities, I've come to the conclusion that really this is about the politicization of government-funded research. And I think that is a monumental step backwards. The reason why, Mr. Speaker, is that every now and then this province does something right, something really right. And what they did really right here was to create the Alberta Heritage Fund on Medical Research and a number of other similarly configured and funded research foundations in Alberta. And the uniqueness and the success of what we've seen through the Alberta Heritage Fund for Medical Research really inspired me. Because a couple of years ago, I guess it was the 2004 election, the Alberta Liberals had developed a whole policy about endowment funds as a way of savings and as a way of taking our non-renewable resource revenue and driving it, directing it into something that would be of benefit for Albertans for many years to come, that non-renewable resource revenue would pay off for us for a long, long time. And the model that I looked at as I gave my input to the development of that policy was the Alberta Heritage Fund for Medical Research. Because what they did right here was they had an independent and respected, peer-respected board that made decisions. They put a good chunk of money into it, and that was back in Peter Lougheed's day. And then the previous premier put another chunk of money towards it. They have managed their finances very well. But they were definitely seen by the scientific and medical research community as arm's length. And what started to happen is that we created an economic cluster with that medical research foundation. So we started to get other pockets of activity that came to Alberta and came to the Edmonton area because of the work that was being funded through the Alberta Heritage Fund for Medical Research. So and it's odd to think of that as an economic cluster, an economic driver. And I don't know, I'm not satisfied exactly with that wording of things, but it's the best wording I can come up with at this point to describe what I was seeing. Because not only were we attracting researchers and scientists from across the world, because we were giving out serious money here. I mean, there's a level of sort of grants that's considered pretty small potatoes, and then there's the kind of midland stuff, and then there's the serious money. And if you're a top scientist, researcher in the world, you go where there's big money. And we had not a lot of big money grants to give out, but we had enough to give out some big money grants. And they attracted some really impressive people here. And as they came here, well, of course, they bring their families with them, and if I may make a broad generalized statement, their family members were no academic slouches. So we ended up with a whole new group of people moving into Alberta just because we gained the benefit of the researchers and the scientists coming. And then we also ended up with these sort of ancillary businesses that started to spring up to support the research that was being done. So it was a really good model. Now what I'm seeing is I don't think this government, as I often note with this government, has not looked far enough into what could be the unintended consequences. And I hope these would be unintended consequences, because I'd be very unhappy to learn that the government intended to do what I'm about to describe. But what I'm seeing is this is the politicization, the control of these research foundations. And I thought, who would come up with such a wacky idea? Why would any group of people decide to do this to something that worked so well? And guess what? You know, we learn a lot from our families. And what I discovered as I started to look around was these members had looked to their federal cousins and, in fact, are following what we've already seen their federal Conservative cousins have set up in controlling and politicizing the government-funded research grants on the federal level. So what would be the consequences of this? And as I started to think, okay, well, if we end up with a politicized and a controlled funding fund that to support scientists and researchers, is it going to reverse what we had? Are we going to stop getting the really A-level gold-plated prize-winning blue ribbon scientists and researchers that we've been able to attract to Alberta? Does that start to reverse itself? And the answer, I think, is true, because from my inquiries into people that are around in this sector, I'm being told that there is no indication that there will even be a competition this fall for new positions, and that recruitment and replacement is essentially sliding to a halt. And you can understand why that would happen. If there's uncertainty, everybody tends to stop. We see that a lot around election cycles. You know, we get 6 months out from an election cycle and everything starts to sort of slow down in the departments because nobody knows who's going to be their political master, and they don't want to make big moves that they're going to get criticized for, and everybody just slows down until they know what's going to happen. So we are definitely seeing that here. And I'm hearing that, indeed, there's a real question about the independence of the board to make the tough decisions that they have been able to make, that has been a critical piece of the success of that particular foundation that I'm highlighting. And I mean, there's a very definitive time-sensitive consequence to all of this, because they have an independent review every 5 years by international experts, and I don't know, I don't think the minister is going to be so happy about what could be coming out of that one. And you can jig that. You know, you can have the right people in place and put them in place for the 5 years. You get your passing check mark, and then you pull the whole thing apart. And that's certainly quite possible, and I've seen that happen in other situations. But it's darn hard to rebuild the next time you're coming around to that 5-year review. So that's what I see has happened, and I've taken quite a bit of time already to describe it, and I'll be very interested in reviewing a sort of sectional analysis and reviewing some more of the information I've been able to dig up about this when I'm able to speak in Committee of the Whole. But at this point, I know there's some interest in moving on. So, Mr. Speaker, I would move adjournment of Bill 27 at this